Who is this irresistible creature who has an insatiable love for the dead?
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's a little bit scared.
Stop the prime time, bitch!
Do you want to die, Sydney? Your mother sure didn't.
Cookie, I'm scared.
You fucking should be.
What happened? Are you okay?
He's slime.
Don't let her get away, Mother. Don't let her live. I won't, Jesus. I won't.
Hello, Adam. Dr. Gordon. I want to play a game.
The Jigsaw Killer.
Paul, find the path through the razor wire.
Technically speaking, he's not really a murderer. He never killed anyone.
Dr. Gordon, your aim in this game is to kill Adam. If you do not, then Diana will die.
He finds ways for his victims to kill themselves.
Welcome to the first year of Nerd Nation Spooktacular. Basically, through October, I'm going to be covering old and new movies that you typically watch around Halloween, starting with the original Saw. So in Saw, two men wake up in a dirty old bathroom with their legs chained to pipes. They don't remember how they got there. They soon realize that they're in Jigsaw's latest trap, who is a serial killer who puts his victims in traps and basically makes them kill themselves. If you don't know what Saw is, I don't know what to tell you. This movie is incredibly influential. Even before I saw this movie, I knew about the iconic bathroom in this movie, and I knew the famous quote, "Do you want to play a game?" This movie is just a pop culture phenomenon, and the series is still going strong to this day. Saw basically started this whole subgenre of horror movies labeled torture porn, which turned me off from this franchise for a while. I really don't like movies where it's just a bunch of blood and guts and no real story. But I was really surprised that the first Saw movie was just a little psychological thriller. And in my opinion, it's still the best in this series. I've noticed a pattern with James Wan, the director of this film. He makes one or two movies in his horror series, leaves, and then the series never gets better after that. Like, for example, he made Insidious 1 and 2, which are still my favorites in the franchise, and then he made The Conjuring 1 and 2, which are also still my favorites in the franchise. James Wan is probably one of my favorite directors of all time. I haven't seen all of his movies, but all the ones I've seen I've really enjoyed and even loved some of them. And Saw is no exception. I think this is a fantastic movie, and there's a lot more going for it than you'd expect at face value. When you hear the name Saw, you probably think a lot of blood and gore and torture, and while the first Saw movie is definitely not squeaky clean, it's more psychological in nature and it's not as violent as its reputation. Sure, the movie is very violent, but when there's actual violence on screen, it's only like a few frames that you see the actual damage that happens to these characters. Whereas in the later Saw movies, they show the whole thing in graphic detail. And when it is used, it's even more effective because the images in this movie do stick with you. Whereas in the other Saw movies, you're kind of desensitized to it. Where this movie really shines is its main story, Dr. Gordon and Adam stuck in a bathroom and just trying to figure out how to get out. That part is definitely the most interesting in the movie, and when you're in the bathroom, there's not a single boring moment. It's just constant tension and constant interest because the movie doesn't explain everything to you out front. You're with these characters for the ride, and you figure out what they figure out at the same time. When they discover shocking, you're shocked too, because the movie doesn't give you answers right away. It keeps you at bay and keeps ramping up the tension until the very end. I also don't mind the flashbacks in this movie at all. Flashbacks can be very overused in movies, but I think Saw does it right. The flashbacks aren't there just to pad the runtime. They help you understand the movie. You're given clues throughout the flashbacks to see why our main characters may have been locked in this bathroom. And every flashback honestly feels necessary to the plot. There's not really a flashback in here just to have a flashback. It feels like all of them serve a purpose. The Saw movies also have this technique where the camera moves really fast around the victims, and there's a lot of cuts and flashes while they're trying to escape these traps. And in the first movie, you can tell that it was for budgetary reasons because this movie had a pretty small budget. But I don't really mind the technique they use in here. It can be overused a little bit, but I think it gives Saw its own unique identity. Can't really imagine the Saw movies without the fast cuts and zooms and everything. And of course, you can't talk about a Saw movie without talking about the twist ending. I won't spoil it because I was fortunate enough to see this movie without having it spoiled for me, and I want to give you that same chance. I think the original Saw might have one of the best plot twists ever put to film. It completely subverts your expectation on repeat viewings, pick up on certain things you didn't on the first watch. I love when movies have certain details that you don't pick up on first viewing, and it takes multiple viewings for you to actually notice. I think it's really cool and really makes the movie more rewatchable that way. My one main issue with this movie is like the detective subplot. I don't really find it all that interesting, and it kind of just kills the pacing for me every time it's on screen. Like the first 30 minutes of this movie have amazing pacing. It feels like only 10 or 15 minutes have gone by. But once the detectives show up in the picture, it kind of slows down. They're not in it a whole lot, so it's not a huge deal. It's just a very unmemorable subplot, and it drags the movie's pacing to a halt. Overall, I think Saw is a fantastic movie. If you're someone who doesn't like torture porn like me and has been hesitant to give this movie a shot because you think it's going to be super violent and gross, then I would actually really recommend this movie. It's got a lot more going for it than just torture and violence. It's got a really good story and a really good psychological vibe to it. It's a classic. It's one I rewatch every year. In 20 years and 10 movies later, they still haven't been able to top the original. I'm going to give Saw an A. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm very excited to start talking Halloween movies with you. It's the best time of the year. I'll have another movie review for you Friday, so stay tuned for that. With that said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.